I can hear you. I can hear you.
Oh,
Right. All right.
yeah,
So we are going to start talking about Apex today. All right. And using Apex, we will learn how to create the third type of the controller. We have seen standard and standard list controller. There is the third type of controller, which is called a custom controller, where you can define your own logics. Okay. But to write your own logics, you need to write those logics in Apex. Right. So we will talk about a few basics of Apex, which we require to understand the custom controllers, right? So Apex is a proper programming language which can be used for writing the logics, right? Now, like any other programming language, Apex also has variables, the concept of defining variables, right? Um, so whenever I'm talking about variables, there is one thing that you have to understand, that's the data type of the variable. So what all data types are allowed for Apex? That's the first thing that we're gonna look at. Okay. So, right. So what is Apex? Apex is a strongly typed object-oriented programming language, as I said. Okay. And this allows developers to execute flow and transaction control statements. Right. On the Force.com platform. So this Apex programming language works only on our Force.com platform. This is native to this particular platform. It does not work on any other platform. So that's one thing. Apex enables developers to add business logic to most of the system events, like including button clicks, related record updates, and Visual Force pages. Alright. So it allows you to put logics into these particular events. When someone clicks on a button, what will happen? When a record is updated, what happens? When a Visual Force page is opened, what happens? So you can add logics to these particular events using Apex. So that's basically the Apex thing. Now, as I said, every programming language has the concept of defining variables. Apex also has the variables. So let's understand what are the different data types of the variables that can be defined in Apex. All right, what data types can be defined? Okay, the first and the most simplest data type that can be defined in Apex is primitive. What is primitive? Primitive is the data types that you have seen in some other programming language also. Something like an integer, string, those things are primitive, right? So Apex primitive data types will include Boolean. Boolean can hold a true, false, or null. Decimal, a number that includes a decimal point. Double, 64-bit number. ID, it refers to a Salesforce.com ID. Integer, a 32-bit number that does not include a decimal point. Long, a 64-bit number that does not include a decimal point. String, any set of characters surrounded by single quotes. So the string is basically any text or set of characters. Date, time, and time. All right, so these are the primitive data types, right? Which can be defined in the Apex programming language, all right? And to write these, it's pretty simple. We define integer like this: integer I equals 40, string s equals hello, right? Boolean b equals true, So this is how the primitive data types can be defined, right? And these are pretty much used in any other programming language also. So that's about the primitive data types. Now let's go ahead and see what other data types we have in Salesforce. The second one is S-object. S-object refers to Salesforce object. The term S-object refers to any object that can be stored in Force.com platform database. Alright, so this refers to a Salesforce object, any object that can be stored in the Salesforce.com database. An S-object variable represents a row of data and can only be declared in Apex. So this S-object variable can only be declared in Apex. For example, account A, contact C, this way. Alright. So this S-object variable represents a row of data from that object. Alright. So if I say account A, this account A represents a row of data. So this is a variable which can hold a full row of data from the account object. So this is how S-object is defined. Firstly, object name and then the variable name. Okay. Contact C. Now C is a variable which holds a row of data from contact object, okay, which can hold a full row of data from the contact object. So that's how it is. Okay. So you can define S object variable for any of the Salesforce object, standard as well as custom. Okay. So it can be account A equals new account name equals IBM. So this is how it is to be defined. Name equals IBM, type equals customer, industry equals education or technology. Okay, so this is actually referring to the complete row of data. Right. Contact C equals to, it can be like new contact. First name equals, let's say, G. Last name equals Singh. Email equals contact Singh at gmail.com. Right. So we have this way of defining the S objects. All right. So a full record from a certain object. Okay. That's about S object. While we are defining an S object, you can also define it like, so this is about a new contact. So if you are trying to define a variable which is not existing in the database, you can do it like this, or you can define it like this. If you want to if you want your S object variable to fetch the data from the database, then you can write a query for it. Select first name, last name, email from contact, where email is equals contact gmail.com. Okay. So if you're trying to fetch the data from the database, then this should be the thing. This is how you define it. Use the select query there. If you're trying to display it as a new record which does not exist in the database, then this is the syntax for that. All right. So that's how it is. Now that's about the S object. Let's understand the other data types. The S object we have understood. Then next data type is a list. Okay, what is a list? List is basically collection of values in one variable. So far we are talking about one value in one variable. If I want multiple values in one variable, then it should be list. Okay, a list is an ordered collection of primitives or S object that are distinguished by their indices. Okay, so like this string S, like this string S, it has just one string here. Okay, does not have multiple strings. If I want to define multiple string, then you have to write it like this: list of string, let's say colors, equals new list of string red, green, blue, orange. So that's how you can define it. Right. So this is how you can define it: red, green, blue, orange. This is how we are going to define it. All right. The same way, if you are talking about a list of string weekdays equals new list of string Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Correct. So this is how you define list of variables. Okay. So this first string, then you can have list of integer or list of any other primitive, and we can have list of S object also. Like instead of single account, if you want to define list of account, ICGS equals select name, type, industry from account where, let's say industry equals technology. Okay. So in this case, what will happen? This case, this ACTS variable will hold value, will hold all the accounts where the industry is technology. There can be multiple accounts which are returned, all right? And it can hold those multiple values. Clear? Okay on this. So that's basically about the list data type. All right. So we have seen the S object, and then we just saw the list, right? If you want to add a value to the list, then there is a method called add. Let's say this is the list of string and you want to add a value to this. You want to add one more color into this, purple. So you can just go ahead and say colors dot add purple. So purple color gets added into the list. Okay, so this is how it works. If you want to retrieve the value for a certain from the list from a certain position, then you can just say colors dot get 0. So 0 will return the first value. Okay, every value that gets into the list has an index number. This is an ordered collection. So every value which is getting into the list is getting into that particular order. Okay, so red is first, this is second, this is third, this is fourth, and purple is fifth. That's how it is. Okay, the list is. Now, the moment you say 0, you are referring to the first record. The index number of the first record is 0. The index number for the second record is 1. That is. So index number starts from 0. Alright. So the moment you want to fetch value from a certain position, you just have to say this. Okay. So this colors dot get 0 will get you the value of the first record, which is red. The same way if you say colors dot get 2, what value will be returned?
Blue.
Blue. Correct. So that's how it is. All right. Okay. So that's about the list. All right. So we have understood about the data types more or less. Now let's go and talk about how are we going to include this into the um, visual force page. All right. So there are a couple of other small concepts that I need to tell you before we can actually start writing our Apex for the visual force page. All right. So data types we have talked, we have seen. Now there is another concept which is called a class. We have just talked about variables, correct? Yeah. Someone is asking something.
No, 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 that's fine. So we got primitive as objects in the list. Okay, cool. Now continue,
Now,
please.
there is this, we have seen the variables. Okay, we understand what a variable is. Okay? A variable is just a value holder. What does a variable do? Variable is just a value holder. If you have done some mathematics in your school days, you must have seen x, y. Those were variables, right? X can have a certain value, y can have a certain value. But these are just value holders. They can only hold value. They cannot hold the instruction. What needs to be done, they do not know. So for that, we need function, right? So for what needs to be done, that's the function. Like whether you want to perform a sum, you want to perform a multiplication, you want to perform a delete, you want to perform an insert, function or method is what will have the instructions that what needs to be done. Okay. We call it function or method. Okay. That's where the instruction is going to be that what needs to be done. Whether the variables need to be added or they need to be subtracted, they need to be inserted into the database, they need to be deleted from the database, that will be held in the function or method. Okay. We generally call it method. Some programming language they refer to it as function also. Let me write method first. Okay. So method is something which will have uh, the instructions written, and then there is something called class. Okay, a class is where the complete program is going to be written. Okay, so a class will have, class is a complete code block with the variables as well as methods. Okay, so class should ideally have class name of the class, plus variables to be used in that class, plus all the methods to be used in that class. That's how it is, right? Now, why are we putting the variables and methods in a class? Just to make it a little more organized, so that whenever you are referring to a certain uh, method, you can actually refer it through the class. It's like files and folders. So why do we have folders? Because so that we can have the files a little more organized. So that's the reason why all similar kind of methods should be put in one class. That's how it actually works, right? Or all methods which are required for a certain task should be put in one class. That's how the concept should be. So let's say you create a class called mathematics. Under this class you can have I'm just trying to give you an example. In under this I can have two variables. Let's say integer x equals 20 and integer y equals 30. These are two variables here. Okay, and inside this, because as I told you, variable cannot do anything on its own. It's just a value holder, and then you can have method named add. Okay, and inside this method you can define integer. There is one more integer called result. In method add, what you can do, you can just go and say result equals x plus y. So x minus y, this can be x into y, this can be x by 1. Okay, so this is your complete class. Inside the class there are two variables and there are these many methods, right?
G,
Mm-hmm.
did you meant to write method divide or is it
Sorry,
delete actually delete?
divide.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
this is how a class will be. Now, every time you have to call a method from here, wherever you are trying to reference, uh, let's say, let's say an add thing. So what you will do is you will refer to it as mathematics dot add. Okay. So then what will happen? It will perform an add. And it will return you a result.
Quick question there, G.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know how we have written in front of method, sorry, in front of add, we have always written method. We have to write method, is it? Or
Right.
just for our, sorry?
Mm-hmm. Tell me.
No, was that just for our reference to understand that that is a method, or we actually have to write method there?
No, you don't have to write the method there. It's just for your understanding that these are four methods.
Okay, 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 great, okay.
Right? But for class, you have to write class. This
For
needs to
class,
be
you have to write it.
fine. So that's it. So this is how simple it is. That you have to create a class and then you have to put all the methods that are useful for a certain class. In one class, you put all those methods and variables, and then you just go and call it wherever you want to call it. Got it? No. Now come to the custom controller part. So we have understood variables, methods, and class. Uh, so this three things is what we are actually going to work around with. So the custom controller, when you say a custom controller, all that you have to do is, when you're talking about a custom controller, all that you have to do is you just have to define, uh, for a custom controller, you just have to create a class. Okay, all the code that you want to call on the Visual Force page, you have to write it inside, right inside that class, and save that class. Got it? So for a custom controller, you create a class, put all code. So when I'm talking about all code, I'm definitely talking about all the variables and methods inside the class, and then call it on the Visual Force page. That's it. That is it. Call it on the Visual Force page. That's what we are going to do. So let's do a small example to understand this a little better. Give me a moment. Let me log in into Salesforce.
Sir, you want my login ID?
No, I have that saved. Okay. So here we are. All right. So we have this class here. Sorry, no class. We'll first of all create the class, and then we will call that class on a Visual Force page as a controller. That's what we have to do. Okay. So first thing, you have to create a class. Where do you create a class? You just need to go to setup, develop classes, setup, develop Apex classes.
Jeet, I think the screen has frozen, or actually, yeah, it's working now.
Create a new class. Okay. Write it as public class Q1. Okay. And let me define a variable here. String hello equals how are you? Okay. and all that I need to do is I just need to go ahead and define here one method public. Okay, why are we writing public before the class name? Because this class needs to be called from a Visual Force page. So anything which needs to be called from an external source needs to be defined as public. Fine. Same way this method also will be called from the Visual Force page. That's the reason why this method also has to be public. So you have to define both these things, the class as well as the method, as public. Okay. Now I want to display this variable hello on my Visual Force page. Let's say this is the simple example that we are going to do. To do that, this is just a variable, right? So as I said, variable cannot do anything on its own. You have to always define a method for it. You just want to take the value of this variable and display it on the Visual Force page. For that, you have to use a get method. So what is a get method? Get method can get the value from a variable and put it on the page. Okay. There is a method called get method. We also call it a getter method sometimes. So this, what does this getter method or get method do? It basically takes the value from the variable and displays it on the Visual Force page. Okay. So you cannot call this variable directly on the Visual Force page. You have to use a get method to display the value of this variable on Visual Force page. That method also has to be public. Return type will be string. Get hello, return hello. So in this entire thing, public, as I told you, it's defined as public because I have to call it from the Visual Force page. String is the return type. So whenever you are writing a get method, you have to define the return type of the method, what exactly it's going to return. So it's going to return hello, which is a string. So return type is string. Get hello is the name of the method. Any get method that you define in Apex should start with the keyword get. Okay. After get, you can put whatever name you want. You can say get M1, get A, get whatever. Okay, but this get has to be there. And after get, you can put whatever you want as the suffix for the method name. Okay, so actually this entire thing is a method name, but in any method name, get method name, this get part is common. Okay, this has to be there. Okay, okay, so that's my method. And what do I want this method to do? I just want this method to return hello. I don't want this method to do anything. I just want it to return hello. And the value of hello is how are you. So this is what will be written on the page when you call this method. That's it. Okay, the class is saved. What is the name of the class? Q1. Okay, now let's go and create the Visual Force page. Apex/A12. Let's try to create the Visual Force page here. So this time your controller is not from any of this object. It's just going to be a simple controller. So you won't use standard controller here. Controller equals to name of the class. What was the name of the class? Naren, what was the name of the class?
It is Q1.
Yes. So what will we write here? Q1. Okay.
Q1.
That's it. Now we have set the connection between this page and the class. Now inside this page, now you can call the method M1. Okay. To call a method, this is the syntax. The same within curly brackets, semicolon, and the method name. Okay. So while you're calling a method on the page, you will have to make sure that you don't call the get part. That
Right.
doesn't need to be called.
Okay.
So that's it. What will this M1 do? It will return what? Hello. So
Yes.
ideally it should
How are
display
you?
how are you. That's what it should
How
do.
are you? Hmm.
Let me just save it. It's working. Got
How are
it?
you? Beautiful. Yep.
Okay. So that's how it is. Now let's say the same thing that we were talking about. String x equals to 20.
20. Yep. Integer y equal to.
Integer integer y equals 30. Whatever we were
Hmm.
talking about, let's just run it. Result equals x plus y. That's it. I want to define one method which will show me the result. So it should be like public integer. Here the return type is going to be integer. So it should be public integer. Okay. This result is also
Okay.
an integer. You have to define as get m2. And it should return result. Return result.
Hmm.
Okay. Now if I go ahead and say line break m2, it returns 50.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Now if you want, now here it is kind of fixed, it's add only. Okay, but if you don't want, you want to perform the add or subtract depending on the method name, so that is also something which can be done. Okay. Let me define one method here. Let's remove this. Okay. Okay, let's say now if I have not defined integer result equal x plus y, you can also do something like integer result, don't assign any value to this here, and then you can say public integer
Integer.
get add.
M3.
Let's say this time I'm calling the method name as add,
Okay.
and inside this I will set result equals to x plus y, and then I will return result. The same way I can define one more for subtract.
So it'll be public integer get subtract close bracket curly open result equal to x minus y return result.
Return result. And the same way, let me have one more multiply. Subtract. This method name completely depends on you what you want to get. Multiply, and this should be like this, and this should be this. So now I have three methods: add, subtract, multiply. Okay. So when you call it here, you have to say add add result, subtract result,
Subtract, multiply result, divide result.
multiply result, and the method names also need to be changed inside this. Subtract and multiply. Okay, now if you want just
Yep.
to make this value as bold, all that you have to do is use the B. That's it. So add result 50, subtract result 10, multiply result 600. Got it? So this is how simple it is. So you just have to, whatever you want to display on the page or whatever you want to do with that variable, that you have to define in a method, and then you have to call that method on the Visual Force page. That's it. That's how simple it's going to be. Clear? So just go and try working on these kind of simple small examples. I'll just copy this entire class code and put it in the chat window. You can copy it from here, or I can email also the code that we have written in the class, as well as the one that we have written in the Visual Force page. I can just email it. All right. So I would want you to go back and work with the primitives only today. Tomorrow, once we meet, we will start talking about the S object. Okay. So how do we deal
Okay.
with this object and stuff like that? Code. What is the date today? 21st October.
Today's 21st. Yes.
And its class code is this, and EVF code is right.